The air outside the school auditorium was filled with cheers, laughter, and the sound of camera shutters. Students were hugging their friends, teachers were giving parting advice, and proud parents carried bouquets of flowers. Amidst all this, Precious clutched a graduation certificate like it was a treasure. For her, it wasn't just a piece of paper. It was proof that she had survived. She had endured homesickness, cultural shocks, jealousy, rumors, and heartbreak. And somehow, through all of that, she had found love. J.A. Minute found her by the garden, away from the noise. He looked different that evening, almost more mature. His cap was off, his black hair gently tousled by the breeze, and his sharp features softened as his eyes found hers. He held her hands. "We did it," he said. Precious smiled. "We did." But he didn't let go. "This isn't the end, Precious. This is a beginning, and I don't want to face what comes next without you." Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe that the magic of this moment could last forever, but she knew life after school was not a fairy tale. "What comes next?" she asked softly. He hesitated before answering. "I'll be starting training in my father's company soon. They've always expected me to join the family business. And you've told me about your dream of becoming a cultural diplomat. That might take you back to Uganda or even other parts of the world." The words hung between them like a heavy cloud. For the first time that night, fear crept in. But he continued firmly, "I don't care how far you go, how busy life gets. I want you in it. So promise me something." Her heart thudded. "Promise you what?" "That no matter where life takes us, we'll fight for this. For us." Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded. "I promise." Their lips met, sealing the vow under the Seoul skyline, cherry blossoms drifting around them like confetti. But deep inside, both of them wondered silently, could love alone carry them through the challenges that awaited? The stage was set. Graduation was over. Life was about to begin, and with it, the real test of their love. The weeks after graduation flew by. Seoul was alive with summer energy, yet for Precious, everything felt uncertain. She had been accepted into a cultural studies program at a university in Seoul, but she was also considering an exchange opportunity that would take her back to Uganda for a year. The thought of leaving J.A. Minute so soon after they had finally found each other terrified her. Meanwhile, J.A. Min's life had already shifted. His father wasted no time in introducing him to the world of business. Meetings, late-night dinners, and endless expectations filled his days. At first, he was excited to prove himself, but quickly the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. One evening, Precious sat waiting at the little cafe where they had first met. She stared at the half-empty glass of sick, her phone buzzing with messages from her host mother telling her to come home soon. J.A. Minute was late. Again. He had promised to meet her after his office training, but an hour had passed. Finally, he rushed in, looking exhausted, his tie loose around his neck. "I'm sorry," he said breathlessly, sitting down across from her. She forced a smile, but her heart ached. "You've been saying that a lot lately." He reached for her hand. "I know. I hate it. But my father, he doesn't let up. He says this is my chance to prove I'm serious." Precious bit her lip. She understood, but it didn't make the loneliness any easier. "What about us? Where do we fit into this new life?" He looked at her, pain flickering in his eyes. "I don't know, but I want us to. Please, Precious, don't give up on me." She sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I won't, but I also need to follow my own path. I've been offered a chance to return to Uganda for a cultural exchange program." His eyes widened. "Uganda? For how long?" "Maybe a year." Silence fell between them. The cafe around them buzzed with laughter and conversation, but to them, the world had gone quiet. It was the first time reality had truly threatened the love they had fought for. And in that silence, both of them wondered, were their promises enough to survive two worlds pulling them apart? J.A. Minute had always known that life after school wouldn't be simple, but he hadn't expected the pressure to feel this suffocating. His father, a stern and ambitious businessman, had already mapped out his son's future, boardrooms, contracts, and eventual leadership of the family company. Every day began with endless meetings, lessons in corporate etiquette, and late-night strategy sessions. At first, J.A. Minute convinced himself it was only temporary, a test of endurance. But weeks turned into months, and it became clear this was his life now. One night, as he sat in his office overlooking the Seoul skyline, his phone buzzed with a message from Precious. "Can we talk?" He glanced at the pile of documents in front of him, his chest tightening. For the 5th time that week, he typed the same words. "I'm sorry. I'm busy tonight." On the other side of the city, Precious stared at her phone, her heart sinking. She had never felt so far away from him, even though they were in the same city. The boy who had once walked her home under the soft glow of streetlights was now a stranger tied to a future she wasn't sure she fit into. The next weekend, she decided to visit him unannounced. She arrived at his father's company building, feeling out of place in her casual dress among the sleek glass walls and suits. The receptionist eyed her suspiciously before calling upstairs. When J.A. Minute appeared, his expression was a mixture of surprise and guilt. "Precious, what are you doing here?" "I had to see you," she said softly. "You're slipping away from me, J.A. Minute. I barely recognize you anymore." His face fell. "I'm trying, Precious. I'm doing all of this for us, for the future." She shook her head. "No, you're doing this for them, for your father. But what about what you want? What about us?" For the first time, he had no answer. That night, as he lay awake in bed, he realized the truth. He was living a life chosen for him, not the one he dreamed of. But to break free, he would have to make a choice, one that could change everything. While J.A. Minute wrestled with the weight of family duty, Precious faced a crossroads of her own. Her professors had officially confirmed her placement in the Uganda Cultural Exchange Program. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, a year back home, working with diplomats and cultural ambassadors, building bridges between Korea and Africa. When she read the acceptance email, her heart leapt. This was everything she had worked for. But then the reality sank in. It meant leaving J.A. Minute behind. That evening, she met with her host mother in the kitchen. The older woman could see the conflict in Precious's eyes. "You're torn," she said kindly, stirring a pot of soup. Precious nodded. "I've dreamed of this moment for so long, but now I don't know if I can go. What about J.A. Minute? What if I lose him?" Her host mother placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Precious, love can survive distance, but it cannot survive regret. If you give up your dream now, will you not resent him later?" The words lingered in her mind all night. She thought of her family in Uganda, her mother who had cried with pride when she first left for Korea, her siblings who looked up to her. Didn't she owe it to them, and to herself, to follow this path? The next day, she told J.A. Minute the news. He was silent for a long time, his jaw tight. "So, you're leaving?" he finally asked. "It's only a year," she said quickly. "We can make it work. We promise each other." His eyes darkened. A year is a long time. Precious. Everything is changing already. What if? He stopped himself, the unspoken fears hanging in the air. "What if what?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if we don't make it?" Her heart clenched, but she forced herself to stay strong. "Then we'll fight harder. Because I can't give up on this dream, J.A. Minute. And I won't give up on you either." He looked at her, torn between love and fear. And though neither of them said it aloud, both wondered, was love strong enough to survive a year apart in two different worlds? The day of Precious's departure came faster than either of them expected. The airport was bustling, the sound of rolling suitcases and boarding announcements filling the air. Precious clutched her passport and ticket in one hand, the other entwined tightly with J.A. Min's. Neither spoke much on the ride to the airport. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken fears. Precious's heart thudded in her chest as she glanced at him. His usually confident posture seemed small, his eyes clouded with emotions he couldn't put into words. At the terminal, he pulled her aside, away from the crowd. "Do you really have to go?" he asked softly, his voice breaking. Her eyes glistened. "I do, J.A. Minute. This is who I am. It's my dream. You told me once that being different scared you because you liked it too much. This is part of that difference. It's who I am." He swallowed hard, fighting the tears threatening to spill. "I know. I'm just afraid." She reached up and cupped his face. "So am I. But love isn't about staying in the same place. It's about growing, even if it's hard. The final boarding call echoed. Precious felt her chest tighten. She leaned in and kissed him, deeply, desperately, as though trying to carve the memory into her heart. When they pulled apart, her tears spilled freely. "Promise me one thing," she whispered. "Anything. Don't let them, your father, your world, change you. Be the J.A. Minute I met in that cafe." He nodded, unable to speak. She turned and walked toward the gate, her figure slowly swallowed by the crowd. J.A. Minute stood there long after she disappeared, the taste of her kiss still on his lips, the ache of her absence already carving into his heart. For the first time in his life, he wasn't sure how to face tomorrow without her by his side. Uganda welcomed Precious with warmth she hadn't felt in years. Her family met her at the airport with tears and laughter, her mother embracing her as though she was a child again. The smell of home-cooked food, the sound of familiar languages, the rhythm of Kampala's streets, it all wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. But even in the joy of reunion, something was missing. Each night, when the house grew quiet, Precious would lie awake staring at her phone. Time zones turned their conversations into short, hurried calls. She would wake up to his late-night texts, and he would fall asleep waiting for her replies. At first, they managed. They sent voice notes, silly selfies, and long paragraphs about their days. But as weeks turned into months, the distance grew heavier. One evening, Precious joined colleagues at a cultural event. She laughed, mingled, and even met Daniel, a Ugandan musician who shared a passion for cultural exchange. They clicked easily, their conversations flowing without effort. Later that night, she told J.A. Minute about it over video call. His smile faltered. "Daniel, and you'll be working with him often." "Yes," she said, sensing the tension. "But don't worry, J.A. Minute. He's just a colleague." He forced a nod, but the seed of jealousy had been planted. On his end, he was battling his own storms. His father had started introducing him to business associates' daughters, hinting that it was time for him to think seriously about his future. At one dinner, a young woman named Sajin sat beside him, charming and ambitious, the perfect match in his father's eyes. That night, Precious called, her smile bright despite the shaky internet. "How was your day?" J.A. Minute hesitated before answering. He didn't tell her about Sajin, about how his father was already weaving threads of expectation around him. Instead, he smiled and said, "Busy. I miss you." She smiled back, but deep down, both of them felt it, the cracks forming in the bridge between their two worlds. The promise was still there, but distance and doubt were beginning to test its strength. 3 months into Precious's program, the distance was beginning to leave visible scars. Calls became shorter, sometimes missed entirely. Time differences turned good mornings into good nights, and conversations into rushed updates. One evening, Precious sat on a balcony overlooking Kampala's busy streets. She typed a long message to J.A. Minute, explaining the event she had attended with Daniel's team. She wrote about the performance, the colors, the way Uganda's heritage was being celebrated on an international stage. She wanted to share the joy, but when she sent a message, it sat on delivered with no reply. Across the ocean, J.A. Minute was in yet another business meeting. His father had been drilling into him the importance of appearances, insisting he attend gatherings with Sajin. She wasn't unkind. In fact, she was intelligent and warm in her own way, but every time she laughed at his jokes or touched his arm casually, guilt ate at him. That night, he opened Precious's message, exhausted. He smiled weakly at her enthusiasm, but didn't have the energy to reply. Instead, he set his phone aside, whispering to himself, "Tomorrow. I'll answer her tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. When Precious woke the next morning, she scrolled through their chat and felt a lump in her throat. She hadn't heard his voice in a week. "Why does it feel like I'm the only one trying?" she whispered to herself. Later that day, Daniel noticed her distant mood. "You're not really here today," he said gently. She sighed. "It's complicated." Daniel nodded knowingly. Love across oceans is never easy, but if it makes you doubt yourself more than it makes you smile, maybe it's worth asking if it's love or just memory. The words stung, not because they were cruel, but because a small part of her wondered if he was right. Meanwhile, in Seoul, J.A. Minute stared at his phone that night, Precious's unread messages piling up. His world was pulling him in one direction, Hayes in another, and slowly, the cracks between them widened. Soo Jin had a way of fitting seamlessly into J.A. Min's new life. She understood the business world, spoke confidently in meetings, and charmed everyone in the room. His father praised her constantly, often comparing her to Precious without even realizing it. "Look at Sejin," his father said one night at dinner. "Graceful, intelligent, from a good family. This is the kind of woman who can stand beside you when you take over." J.A. Minute clenched his fists under the table. He wanted to shout that Precious was just as capable, just as intelligent, even more inspiring. But he stayed silent, the weight of expectation pressing down on him. After dinner, Sejin walked beside him in the garden of his family's estate. "Your father seems determined," she said with a soft laugh. "But don't worry, I'm not here to steal you away. I know your heart belongs to someone else."